Cub fans, and welcome to another awesome edition of Cubs on Tap. Ronald Acuna Jr. off today. Doesn't have the day on today. We're gonna let that man enjoy his weekend. I am joined today with the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Joey Knows Nothing, Mr. Joey Cheese, Mr. Joey Ricotta, the gambling man, probably fresh off an early morning to watch his U.S. Open picks. And, yeah, man, Cubs win. And as Scott says, I found Joey.
I'm here, baby. I'm here, Scott.
How you doing, brother? Good,
man. How are you doing?
Well, they won. They tried to lose a couple times today, but they won. Yeah, hop in the comments if you're here. We're talking Cubs W today. As you know, when I lead this ship, opposed to Ron, it's very up in the air what we end up talking about. I like to dive into some rabbit holes. I propose a question to you. I'll tease that as our opener here. Cubs win. Justin Steele with another great start today. Quality one at that. Got home runs from Bellinger and Miles. Too much Mastrobouni, and you'll go blind. That's his first home run as a Cub. I don't know if that was his first career home run. Really don't care. Yes, there you go. See Joey picking me up already. First career home run. That's pretty cool and tough. But the Cubs hold on and win this one, and in a lot of ways hold on to their season by winning this one. Joey, what was your initial thoughts on today's game, what you watched, and just your initial go at what you thought about, this Cubs victory today?
Well, it's great to start the weekend off this way, obviously. I think after last night's game, much needed because just looked very flat. Last night, I know you guys did a show, and I wasn't able to watch live when you guys were on there because I was kind of face deep in a pizza box and had some beer there with my dad and his buddy and just, all that. But today, it was nice to see them come out there and start hitting. Only 4 runs. It wasn't like they really slaughtered the ball all over the yard, but the key guy coming through again. And if you see my tag name here, Bellissimo, Cody Bellinger, man. He's beautiful. He's beautiful right now. He's very beautiful. That's beautiful in Italian juice. Even if I pronounce it wrong, I'm not sure. But no, man, it was good. It was good to see. I think very scary there at some points. And it wasn't like the best, the well-rounded way to play the game, I don't think. I think me and you both looked at that game like, oh, they could have lost it at any point. Some very critical points, but yeah, it was good to see, home run for Miles Mastrobouni. I don't know where it came from. He's trying to get off of our shit list. I don't know if he has yet, but yeah, it's good to get a W, man.
Yeah, it's nice. I know that I was scrolling through the Twitter Bluebird app a couple nights and looking at our boy Dinger's Mr. Jake Bujnowski actually tweeted out how well Mastrobouni's kind of played over the course of this last couple of weeks. I think there was 17-some plate appearances. He had like a 350 average, slugging at least a little bit. But yeah, getting some good run and kind of producing. I know that they're really weak at that position right now. So he's kind of moved into third base, and he's doing just fine. Kind of picking up. I know that they got no Madrigal. He's on the rehab assignment. Patrick Wisdom's been in and out of there and kind of showing some power. But I thought the game started so odd, right? It was more or less like Justin Steele looked really, really good. But I believe it was that second inning that they scored. A little Cardinal voodoo magic, a lot of soft contact runs. And this is kind of something that we've seen back-to-back starts because and not back-to-back because Stroman was sandwiched in there, but just going back to that Kyle Hendricks start too, I thought Kyle Hendricks is pretty damn good, but got some bad, in ball and play luck too. I think he pitched a lot better than his stat line showed. It was just a lot of sawed off. And this Cub pitcher team seems to they generate a lot of soft contact, but it doesn't always pay out for them as it should. There's a lot of gap wedge singles that it seemed like were out there and balls that just weren't hit hard, but it was nice to see Steele just kind of rebound and hit the reset button. What are you seeing out of Justin Steele, minus the one blip, the last start after the All-Star? What is he doing to be so successful? And what is something that you've seen over the course of this year that maybe you didn't see last year that he's kind of adding into his repertoire or just like his psyche or his appearance out on the mound there?
Yeah, it's kind of tough to say because I feel like he's just building off of last year and just kind of just keeping it moving what he was doing so well towards the end of last year and came into this year with that kind of same plan. And obviously he talked to us in the offseason and wanted to incorporate, more of the changeup and maybe the two-seamer, stuff like that, get some secondary offerings there to play off of the four-seamer and the slider. But, he's still very heavy with the four-seamer and the slider. And then now you're seeing it. He talked about it with us about using the slider in different ways. So, how he was doing it, sometimes he wants to bury it and make it like a wipeout pitch. And then other times it's kind of like that backdoor slider or like the get me over for a strike type of fool 'em slider. And I kind of saw a little bit of that today too. It seemed like quite a bit of backdoor sliders is what it seemed like today. But he still had the drop him off the table slider going for him, which was really nice. But yeah, I thought it was really nice to see him after those first two innings where like you said, it was very much so rough luck. And I mean, he only had one hard hit ball in the inning that he gave up the run. It was just they were racking up the pitch counts, little bleeders here and there. And then, obviously I think he might have had a walk in there. And was it a hit by pitch? I don't know if he had a hit by pitch in there, but I
believe so.
There was so it's like, okay, like that kind of inning, it was just so stupid. But 41 pitches through two innings you're kind of wondering like, oh shit, here we go again. Like, are we going to have a Stroman type of short appearance after, yesterday or last night's ball game? But settled in there and then wound up with, I don't know what it was, 9 strikeouts or something for the game. So, yeah, it was great to see him kind of like that type of inning right there. When you can work yourself out of, it's very easy to get yourself caught up in bullshit when you're getting bad luck. Like you can get so much in your head and like let that overwhelm you, especially early in the game when you're trailing now 1-0. And I think it was 1 out, bases loaded or whatever the situation was at the time. And he didn't. He stayed committed to it, stuck it through and then pitched another quality, very, very quality outing. So Steele's an ace, man. Like, we've been saying it all year, but nothing's really changed on that point. Nothing really surprises me what he's doing. And it's just kind of like almost you go to expect it at this point. And, outside of Stroman, we need more of that. And, with Hendricks too, but he's the ace, like no doubt going forward, I think with Justin Steele.
Yeah, I think what we've kind of seen, and to answer my own question from him this year that I didn't see a lot or as consistently as last year, is that when he does get in trouble, he almost has this different mode to where he can extra focus, be a little bit more pinpoint than he normally is. He has obviously that great slider, that fastball, as you mentioned, that starts right at the hitter for most of the time and is difficult to pick up. But that's the evolution that I was hoping we would see this year from him. It's just that matter of taking your game from being that top of the line starter to an ace. And the difference between those guys are their mentality. It has a lot to do with how they slow the game down, the mental part of it. He has great stuff, but what can you do? And can you make a pitch when you need to make a pitch? And he's done that consistently this year. When he gets in trouble, it seems like he's had some of his best stuff with runners on, bases loaded, whatever, here nor there. But it's interesting to, sit and think about what this team could look like, because I talked about it last night with Nick. I think that while this season for a lot of our viewers and a lot of Cub fans around here will look as dreadful as it is, like they were expecting the fact that the Cubs would be contenders and going against this division. While it's not easy now in the now to be like, hey, this has been a very successful year, it really has. Because from a coaching and development standpoint, I think they've turned the corner opposed to what the old core would kind of be, which the old core kind of more or less was they got here, they got complacent, and they never got better. Opposed to now the Cubs seem to be bringing some of these guys up, and they seem to be progressing differently. They seem to be becoming better players. Like Justin Steele, for many starts and many appearances in 2019, me and you talked about this on this show, or in 2020, we talked about how Justin Steele was struggling and how there were moments where we didn't know where he would fit in. But as he stayed with the big league ball club, he's very much been that type of guy who has gotten better start to start, and we've seen it. So I think that while in the moment when you're making trades and you don't seem like you're in it, and you're not, you're 8 back in the division, it's hard to look up and be like, hey, this has been a successful year. In some ways it has. It's just about finding that right, rose-colored glass to look through to see, those hidden successes that I think this team has had. And I'm curious, Joey, and I know there's one name that I'm sure you're going to bring up, and I'm sure we'll talk about in depth, but if there's any other player that you see as kind of like that asset, that success story that the Cubs have been, so desperately looking for, they've had a lot of guys that come in and they try to do this or that to their swing or their pitching or their repertoire, and it just does not seem to work. I'm curious to see if there's any other names that we're kind of forgetting. And I think that the name that you'll bring up is absolutely the one that we'll probably spend a little bit of time on here.
Well, is it Cody Bellinger? Is that what you're thinking?
That's kind of where I was going.
Yeah, no, I mean, dude, they obviously they saw something in the offseason that they felt good about being able to correct with his swing and what he was doing wrong and get back to who he's been. And no doubt, man, like he's playing like the MVP Cody Bellinger. And I mean, real quick though, like before we go down the Bellinger road totally, I was looking at some numbers here just from record standpoint, because we talk about the Cubs record and like, you brought up a good point about expectations. And I think we can kind of circle back to that as well here in a minute, and like what we were expecting going into the season and stuff like that. But like when it comes to Belly, now he's like the only one that's really been consistent for the most part, as far as that slug goes, right? Like, yeah, you get it a little bit from Wisdom, but you don't get the overall hitting. Same thing with Morel because he's striking out a ton. Belly's not striking out a ton. He's putting the ball in play. He's hitting for average. He's hitting for power. Like total package deal with Cody Bellinger right now. And I was looking at records because I was really interested in this. Records when guys hit home runs. There was 3 names I pulled out here. Cody Bellinger. The Cubs now after today, up until today, they were 4-7. They're now 5-7 when Cody Bellinger hits a home run. Now that to me, which is weird, right? That to me tells me that they need fucking help around him. Like, no question about it. And that's not saying something that nobody knows. Everybody knows this, and I think we've talked about it enough here too. And I looked at Ian Happ and I looked at Seiya Suzuki. The Cubs are 4-3 when he hits a home run. Winning record, not by much, but they're 4-3. Some of that was like the Astros games too, with the bullpen blowing the game and like, bullshit like that. Ian Happ, the Cubs are 5-2 when Ian Happ hits a home run. 5-2. What does that tell you? Like, we need Ian Happ to hit home runs.
Yeah.
That's and I don't know. I'm not going to go down the whole Ian Happ thing today, but yeah, when it comes to Belly, man, it's really impressive to see what the Cubs have been able to do with him and getting him right. And I'm really hoping that comfortability maybe gets the Cubs a little bit of a discount or like favoritism from Cody Bellinger and Scott Boras and being like, hey, we want you to stay here. And I don't necessarily think that an extension is getting done in season. I think I've already said that. I don't think it's going to get done in season because it's Scott Boras and because, like, who knows what his actual value. If he stays hot like this, dude, I mean, that guy's going to get paid a ton this offseason by someone, and it's probably going to be the Cubs, hopefully. But, yeah, I don't know. I'm curious to see what you're kind of seeing with him because to me, he just looks back. It's just Bellinger. It's the guy that we hadn't seen for the last 2 or 3 years, and now you're seeing him.
I think it's really easy, and I said this on a previous show, in Cody Bellinger's sake, to be in an organization such as the Dodgers and not be forgotten, because you never forget, an MVP level player like Cody Bellinger within your team. But let's face it, with the way the LA Dodgers farm system has been over the course of the last 10 years, it's sink or swim because they have massive amounts of talent to replace you. They have outfield prospects. They have infield prospects. They can pitch and develop pitching with the best of them. And I don't want to say that Cody Bellinger was forgotten by any means, but I do think that in some ways it's hard to play under the microscope of being in a division every year to where you're expected to win World Series or bust. 2, to play knowing that there's a top 5 prospect behind you that's ready to take your job. And 3, in LA, let's face it, like, it's easy to get complacent when the weather is perfect all 162 days of baseball. It is very easy to be that type of guy who wins an MVP and gets in a funk of, I think I can fix things myself. Because everything that I've read about Cody Bellinger was that they wanted him to make less tinkerings with his swing, but he constantly tried to fix it himself. And he got himself so dug into this horrible run that he was unable to fix himself after that. So what he needed to do was come back to something that was more familiar. And that's exactly what he did when he came to the Cubs, because if I'm not mistaken, his old hitting coach, when he was, the MVP for his season, is here. He's on the Cubs staff. So it's very familiar for him. And I know that he's going to get paid. But comfort for a hitter, to me, and I don't know if you agree with this, means so much. And to me, there's not one case across the major leagues going into next year where I feel that the situation would be better for him than the Cubs next year, because he would clearly get paid from that. They're going to have plenty of money to spend, again, going into this year. They have a huge need for left-handed power. And the Cubs just may be the team that comes in real quick and says, all right, what do we got to do to get this done? What's the number? And we'll hit it. Or go out and get a number, and if you feel comfortable with that, we'll raise and you'll come back on a 6 or 5 or whatever your deal. Because it makes just too much sense to have him play center or to play right field, considering the fact that Seiya Suzuki's been over the course of the last couple years here, these 2 years here that he's been in a uniform. He hasn't lived up to the expectations. And then the minute that he gets too old, you just move him to first, right? It's exactly, you let him, go back and forth and DH with a guy like Matt Mervis. But I don't know. That's my opinion. I feel more comfortable with them re-signing Bellinger at this point than I do with them re-signing Stroman. And if you would have told me that a month ago, I would have said you were nuts.
I kind of agree with you, man. I want you to pose your question because I feel like that's leading right into it. But I kind of agree with you on that. And it's not because I think that Stroman doesn't want to be here. I know he wants to be here. it's kind of the same thing you're saying, though. Like, the need there makes too much sense. Comfortability-wise, it makes too much sense. When you're swinging it, when you're feeling right, and you find that happy zone or that, like, zone that you need to be in as a hitter, you don't want to change anything. Like, there's – and not that it's different as pitchers, but it's a little bit easier, I think, to kind of pitch from anywhere if your fundamentals and your mechanics are just that in line. And I feel like that's kind of the case with Marcus Stroman. Yes, he needs good defense behind him. Yes, he needs, like, pitching coaches that he likes to work with and catchers he likes to work with and the whole 9 yards too as a pitcher. But mechanics-wise, he doesn't get himself as out of whack as the Cody Bellinger has. So I do think the comfortability kind of leans in favor of him wanting to be here, and the Cubs also, with the need, wanting to bring him back.
Yeah, which I teased it earlier, and we're going to talk about a conversation here. We're going to have a conversation here that is scenario-based, and I want everybody who's listening to the show to jump into the comments as well with their opinions on this. And there's going to be a scenario A and a scenario B. Scenario A is the Cubs go into the trade market selling, but don't find offers they like for Belly and Stroh. They keep them both. They play average baseball down the stretch, but they're able to sign extensions with both of those players. That's scenario A. Scenario B is the Cubs trade for prospects. They're able to move both of those guys for the packages that they want and are still able to bring back one name of those two going into 2024 free agency. What is the player that you want to stay if you pick scenario B? And then what's the trade, not package, unless you want to continue and enter those prospects in there, but what is the position that you think that the Cubs need to attack if they are going to trade both these guys, and what that would bring back and what kind of trade would look like in that sense? That was my question to you, and I know that I sent this to you during the game. You've had some time to think over and mull over it. I don't know your answer, but I want your pick of scenario A and B, and if you pick B, I want the player that comes back and then the position that they address.
Yeah, so the position part is hard, but I do think that they have quite a bit of depth in the system. If you're just hypothetically hoping for the top-notch ceiling guys to pan out, right? And I know I tweeted this out the other day that you can't lean on that, especially from a guy like Matt Mervis at first base. Like, we've already seen that this season. Yes, I still think he's going to be really good. I think he should be up here second half of the season or soon. But you don't want to lean on a guy like that who wasn't necessarily a top prospect type from the get-go. I think you're leaning more on, like, your outfielders that are top prospects, like PCA, Kevin Alcantara, guys that we've all talked about. The pitching depth is really good as far as now. Like, I feel really good about the pitching infrastructure. So to answer that question, I guess I would take B for that scenario. Cubs trade for prospects close to MLB level. I don't know. Player that returns, I think, in the offseason, the player that you return is Cody Bellinger. I think Stroman's going to age really well. He's far more reliant on soft contact, hitting spots, grounders. Ideally, I think he's going to get $30+ million on the market this season. For a pitcher, $30+ million contract, yeah, it's an acceptable price, right? It's an acceptable price. But for a guy that doesn't miss a ton of bats or is a guy that's so reliant on ground balls and defense and all that, I think that you want a guy that's going to miss bats. Belly, being an MVP form, we just talked about it. Him having that left-handed slug, being able to play outfield, being able to play first base. I think from the left side, you need that. I mean, there's not that many great options on the open market this offseason from a bat standpoint, just period. So, like, I look around the diamond, and if you're trading one of those guys or trying to trade both and get one to return or whatever the case is, I think you're looking at third base. Hopefully, I'm very hopeful that they can trade for a third baseman or some power position. Like, maybe that's at catcher. Like I don't know. I don't know how you're gonna strike that. I like Miguel Amaya. Don't get me wrong. I caught a little bit of your guys' show today. Was watching a little bit of it, and I know you were talking about Yan Gomes. So not to like completely steer off of what this scenario is, but I do think that's a good candidate to get traded as well. The team I had in mind was the Tampa Bay Rays because I feel like they do have a real need there at catcher. And I was actually watching a video from Andrea on Twitter at Scout Girl Report, and she was saying, mentioning Jake Rogers from the Tigers or Yan Gomes, and you got Amaya right there to play catcher. So let him play out the rest of the season. But yeah, in this case, like I feel like it's a Ron, and I'm glad Ron's in the comments right now because I feel like it's a Ron or a Tyler. And I know this doesn't make sense, but in my head, like just comparison, I'm just going to blurt it out because shit that pops in my head, I just like blurting out. But like Ron, I know he's a huge Stroman guy. So, I know he doesn't want to hear like Stroman not returning, but I feel really good about where the pitching depth is coming from. And I feel better about the pitchers on the open market. You got guys like Aaron Nola out there, Sonny Gray. Yeah, he'll be 34, but he's pitching well. Julio Urias, maybe a buy low spot, even though because his ERA is over 5 right now, but with some rough outings. Tyler Mahle, Tommy John early in the year, but I mean, who knows? He could be somebody later on. But Ron or Tyler debate. Tyler's been screaming from the rooftops to extend Cody Bellinger. Like I said, I don't think it gets done during the season, but yeah, man, I'm gonna have to go with B on that. What are you thinking?
So I also picked B. I think B is. I hate to say it's the correct answer because I think both are correct. Like if you're unable to get what you need from Cody Bellinger, we're going to find a way. If you can. Sorry, I just had a little breaking news come up on my little thing, so I lost my train of thought. But it's a couple Cody Bellinger comments. We'll get to them later in the show. But yes, B I think is the correct answer because I don't think that Belly is signing within the season. I just don't. I think that he's going to hit the open market, and you might as well get something for him when you're not going to be contending to make the playoffs. I think, like you, and the free agent market for pitchers is very strong. The name you mentioned that I've literally pasted into every, plans article that I want to write up is Sonny Gray. I want Sonny Gray in a Cub uniform so bad. I have for a really long time. And I don't care that he's 34. He seems like the type of guy that is going to age gracefully throughout his career. And he's been lights out this year. Can you imagine swapping in terms of your Cub trade brain here, trading out Marcus Stroman for a Sonny Gray? I mean, you're talking a better pitcher. I love Marcus Stroman. But to each their own, it's Sonny Gray's the better pitcher. It's you're looking at a better rotation with him in it opposed to with Marcus Stroman. It's not saying that I don't want him back, but I do. And I actually looked at trading Stroman back to Toronto because we've seen some of that. And they have a third baseman candidate that is close to the major league level, and that's Orlevis Martinez, who's their 4th prospect within their system. And he has like 16 or 17 home runs this year in the minors. Real close. You may have to throw in one of your own prospects to get that name. But at that point, I think I'm okay with that strictly because of the lack of depth at the third base slot that is close to the major leagues and the lack of names that are there in free agency for the Cubs to make up. I think that that's a name that if the Toronto Blue Jays do call, you got to ask about. And you got to ask to see what you're talking about a 21-year-old kid who has plus power. And they say he's a shortstop third baseman, but they say his best position is going to be third base moving forward because he would do it. And you just don't have the level of prospects within your system that are going to bridge the gap to a guy like we like in James Triantos or some AB guy that they drafted, or if they move Shaw to third, because they've talked about that as well. But yeah, I think too, when you're in a position like the Cubs arguably may have the best bat on the trade market and the best starting pitcher available, full available. Because let's be honest here, the A's are playing decent, and if the A's are even the Angels are playing decent. If the Angels are within striking distance, they're not trading Ohtani. I don't care. How far away, the topic of that they won't have the prospects to get back for they're going to try their best to keep him and make a run with him on the roster. So as long as they're over 500, I don't see them selling. I just don't. But yeah, I think that there was a couple that were in here. At a stoplight here, Mr. Ron B, and he also thinks Belly because of the need and then you target some starting pitching, corner infield help. So we're all in the same boat there. But it's interesting to sit and say, what will they do? We're not in those meetings talking back and forth with teams, knowing what the need maybe. And hear me out. What if you did both? What if you packaged Stroman and Belly together in a deal to bring back one of those A+ prospects? Because that probably gets it done, don't you think?
I mean, that would be incredible. I don't know. I don't even know what the package would look like for that. That would get. I mean, yeah, I know they're both rentals, but that would be an incredible package. I feel like you would have to pay a premium dollar. And if you're talking about high-end ceiling prospects, maybe close to MLB ready too, talent-wise, yeah, that would be. I would be all for it if you can guarantee me that one of these two would come back, or especially Bellinger, because I'm kind of really leaning more that route. Even though I love Stroman and we've been saying extend. I really think that you could definitely make that work. But it all goes back to the thing that we've already been over this before with the other guys too. When the whole core was getting traded, they could trade this guy, they could trade that guy, and then bring him back next offseason. In the back of my head, that all made sense, right? That all made sense. And we know that's not really how it always plays out. The difference there was there was an extreme connection to the organization for a long period of time, and I feel like those guys felt stepped on. Bellinger's been here for 1 year. There's no real what has been torn from the relationship. He hasn't been, I feel like the comfortability level, he's just feeling really good about it. So I think he'd be more than happy to come back. And then also, I do think that there was some of that with Jed Hoyer and the organization, the front office, that was no, we don't want to bring these guys back.
Yes.
None of them, so they just want to rip the Band-Aid off. I'm building this the way I want to build a club. And, to your previous point too, about there's a lot of positivity, whether it's underlying or not, and it's hard to see with the record, and they're not totally competing this year so far. I do totally believe that, because I still don't believe this timeline is 2025, 2026. It can easily be next season. And that was kind of what my prediction was going into the offseason or last season. I said, I don't think it's a full-on rebuild. It's not going to be as long as the last one. And it's still not. People are you have to be somewhat patient. I know we're all impatient when it comes to this stuff because we just want to see the Cubs win. But there's still a lot of positive things going on with the young players and just the core that they do have. I guess if you want to call it a core, they still have to build on that. But there are some pieces there to play with. And I don't think it's terribly far away if you're talking about extending Bellinger, especially after you make a pretty solid trade like that, or potential trade. I like that call, Relvis Martinez. I mean, yeah, if we can do that, man, sign me up all day long.
It's so funny to sit and get on these shows, especially with you, because I know we think about baseball pretty similarly. The Cubs are realistically 3 players away, in my opinion. They're one top-of-the-line starter, which they could find a way to find. They're a first baseman and a third baseman away from being a really dangerous team if you kept it the way it is.
Agreed. Yeah.
And it's not far away. And we're talking about one prospect return that's close to the MLB in one of these trades, re-signing one of these guys and shoring up third base from being right there and finding another arm. I mean, you're talking about 4 different moves here. It's really not. It's they've gone a long way since they tore it all down and decided to a core that had failed 4 times in a row here. Like that's the thing that when you're talking about, bringing guys back and forth too, I think for the Cubs' sake, they didn't want to tell you in 21 that it was a teardown, but it was a teardown. It was rip it to the studs. And now it's not that. This isn't a rip it to the studs project where you're trading anything with value to gain prospects. The Cubs are in the top 10 in the farm system now. So now is the time where you let some of those guys develop, you add to it, you add, supplemental pieces that fit with, your future. And then you try to, develop some players at the major league level that come out of left field. Your Christopher Morels, your, Javier Assads, the guys that you hopefully in the future can look up and say, man, like, yeah, it didn't work as a starter for him, but they ended up shoring up this with them. Or Christopher Morel, who at one point wasn't a top 30 prospect within the system. You look up and you're like, oh man, look, like they shored up. They ended up finding a guy who could play around the field and DH for you and hit for power. They're so close. I know it's easy in the moment to like look up and see the losses pile up and be like, man, like they should be contending, but I think that they're much closer than they are farther away from contending in this thing. Joey, I'm going to leave your final thoughts for this game right now, and then we're going to move on after that and talk about what's going on with the starter tomorrow. It's going to be interesting to see. I'm going to pull up some of these comments because there's a different move that's going to be made for tomorrow that is not Drew Smiley on the bump.
Oh, what in the – I don't know. We'll see what that is. But, final thoughts from this game. I mean, I know Seiya had a tough game, and I texted you. I was like, man, he is so frustrating because he's been hitting pretty well lately, and he did have a home run pretty recently. I can't remember which game it was now. I think it was the 17-3 game, right? I believe that was the home run. I could be wrong on that. But, he homered against the Yankees. He looked like he was really trying to launch today too. And that's where, like, maybe the 3 strikeouts came into play. But, I mean, like, that 3-0 pitch, man, I'm like, what are you doing on 3-0? Like, yeah, you want to try to pick out your pitch and maybe green light him. Swing at 3-0. That's fine. It's ball 4 off the plate. Like,
yeah.
What are you doing? So, but anyways, to end the game, like, defensively, absolutely great play there on Goldschmidt, like, slicing down the line. Great catch to finish it off, or well, not finish it off, but I mean, Goldie runs well for a big man. Like, he's a first baseman, but he's got steals. Like, this dude can run. He easily could have been on third base with 1 out in the 9th inning, and then now you're leaning on getting Arenado to not even make contact, basically. So that could have been the tying run there at third base. So great play by Seiya there in right field. Mastrobouni, obviously, the home run. Bellinger staying hot, like. There's some positive things here from this game that you could take away. Alzolay just continues to really slam the door. It's, like we said, that could have easily been a triple there if Seiya doesn't make that play, but he's been really good in that closer role, and I think he definitely needs some love because one of the true bright spots and things that the Cubs might have figured out here this season has been maybe that closer role moving forward. So, those are really my final thoughts. It's always good to beat these dirty, disgusting fucking pigs from St. Louis.
Dude, I thought of that the whole time that they scored those runs in the second. I'm like, this only the Cardinals have things happen like that to us, right? Only when we play the Cardinals do little blooper bullshit things. So in the air by Morel, at that moment too, at the end of the game, I was like, here we go. Someone's gonna pimp one, and then this is gonna be it. But yeah, man, it was a nice win. It's nice to stay above the selling tide for just a second and maybe think about buying. But
Right.
They got to win 2 more here to convince the front office to keep the guys around. But moving on to tomorrow's game, it's supposed to be a Drew Smiley start. It will be Miles Michaelis tomorrow for the Cards. But as our man Jay drops in the comments, and I did check at Twitter, Michael Fulmer is going to start tomorrow, which seems like it's going to be a bullpen day. Yeah. Initial thoughts on Drew Smiley not taking the bump, hurt, traded, going to the bullpen. What's our thought? And even jumped in here at the bottom and said there has to be some roster moves. Saad just pitched 4 the other night. Who's coming in as a long reliever? There's a good chance that that's the case. That they're going to bring somebody up from Iowa to bridge the gap here because, yeah, Steele went 7 today, but yesterday you only got a couple out of Stroh. And, yeah, what's your thoughts on the bullpen day for tomorrow, which it seems like that'll be – Fulmer pitched today. Threw like 6 pitches today.
I'm not sure what – it must be injury then, right? I guess we'll figure that out, but I don't know
Not
why.
an official report as of yet. But yeah, it's odd to say the least.
Because like I was thinking, if it's not injury related, okay, I guess that kind of makes sense when you have. I know Dylan Carlson hits from the left side, but he let off today. But then you have Goldie, Arenado, and then Wilson. Basically 2 through 4. It's all righties, so maybe they want to get through that first first inning with a power righty. But like Fulmer, like you said, he pitched today, so I mean. Was that a joke? Like, is Ross like? I'm wondering if he's like checking the sense of humor here, and like he's gonna come back. Just kidding, guys. Like, yeah, Drew's on the bump. He's not even hurt. We were just fucking with the Cardinals. But no, I'm hoping. We don't want to see any injuries. So hopefully Smiley is all right. I know we've been getting on him a little bit lately for his lack of performance, at least recently. And I mean. Yeah, we want him to pick it up, but we don't want to see him out because of injury or something like that. But if it's a bullpen day, who knows, man? Yeah, there's going to have to be a roster move or something because you definitely burned through. I mean, let's look at who pitched today. I think it was Merriweather, Fulmer, Leiter Jr. was basically all your best relievers, even though like Fulmer, he's had an up and down, but he's been solid for the most part. As of late. So, I mean, those 4, like that's tough when you don't have those 4 to, I mean, not necessarily they're not going to pitch, but if Fulmer's starting the game, it's going to be kind of odd. I think we might be seeing some high scoring game tomorrow.
You gotta hope. The only silver lining to that, they do have an off day on Monday to recover from the series going into the White Sox 2-game set. So, I mean, maybe you can exhaust a lot for tomorrow and then hope you get a good start on Sunday from your starter, which, yeah, that one's still TBD too. They haven't announced who's pitching on Sunday yet either. Real quick before we –
yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to think. Like, Wesneski, yeah, no, but is he like – I'm wondering the last time he pitched. Like, maybe he'd be –
a couple days ago. Yeah, maybe he's in line to come up and be a bridge guy. That'd be the name, right? I mean,
I hope
you would think that would be the name that's coming up to eat up some innings. But this just goes back to our conversation too, Joey. We had this conversation a couple weeks ago that I thought when Hayden was up the last time he was putting pressure on Smiley for his spot and on Jameson Tyone too. And I don't know, maybe after the deadline we see him come up and be a starter again to get some run, but they got to know what they have out of Hayden by the end of the year, right? You got to figure that out.
Yeah. Well, at least what role, right? Like,
yeah,
I know it took time for us to kind of really see what Steele was. It took time to really see what Keegan was. Like those two guys, and now Keegan's, he's having his issues this year. But Steele, like me and you, yeah, we talked on this show a year ago. I'm pretty sure over a year ago. It was a while ago now, but maybe early part of last year. And we were basically saying, like, I don't know, should he be in the pen, or maybe it was towards the end of the season before. I can't remember exactly, but we were definitely sitting there like, should he be, long relief, bullpen, weapon, 2-3 inning type, or should he be in the rotation? And that was kind of before he found himself. It takes time for these starters. I really think Wesneski's best role is as a starter. I do. And I know we want to see that. Am I going to be right about that? I don't know. Like, you know what I mean? I don't know. We just have to see. We don't know until we see it. And he can struggle all the rest of the year for all I care, as long as maybe you figure that out. Like, figure it out, and then maybe you can just exclusively use him in the bullpen if he struggles. Not to say, obviously we don't want that, but yeah, I'm kind of, long term, what value does Smiley really bring here to this Cubs team when he's not really a bat misser? Good pitcher, don't get me wrong. Good veteran pitcher, good lefty, crafty. Just I want to see the upside guys. I think if we're really not contending, neither one of us think they're winning the World Series, even if they get back into contention. So it's like, what's the fucking point? That's why, like. I get happy. We were so happy getting on the show after a win and beating the Cardinals. You want to beat these pigs, but I don't know. It's like, in my eyes, it never really was a shot that they were going to win the World Series this year. They're going to be a good contending team, and that's what they've been for the most part. Like, yeah, we've had rough struggles. We've had, yada, yada. They're underperforming by run differential, right? They're not a true World Series team. Like, you sneak into the playoffs, fine. Like, what does that get you? The experience? That's fine. I want competitive baseball. I do. But it's very much like there's a lot of nice things happening around a very average team right now. That's just what it is.
Yeah, 100%. Want to read a quote from Cody Bellinger before we bounce out of here, nearing the end of our show today. Cody Bellinger, talking at his press conference, I'm sure the initial question of this was talking about the trade deadline, the looming thing that's going on. His response was, we're a very open communication group here. I'm in the loop on what could happen, what couldn't happen. Never been in this situation before, so I don't know what to say or what not to say. So I'm just going to say I'm going to focus on the game. So he's going to continue to keep focusing. I think the taken point from Cody there is we're a very open communication group here. And I don't know if you remember with Craig Kimbrell a couple of years, was that last year, 2 years ago when they traded him to the White Sox, they were in open communication with all the guys that were going to get traded. They ended up moving Kimbrell over to the Cubs side, or to the White Sox side of town, and he was able to stay around because his daughter was here. It was the best thing for him at the time. And it seems like Cody Bellinger and the front office are going to be, arm in arm throughout this whole process, which the point of the Cubs here for making the trade is he had to maximize his value, but also to be as close to Cody and letting him know of what's going on over the course of the next couple of days, because you want to make sure that he leaves with the sweetest of taste in his mouth from the process of how it was taken over to how it went over to the end of it to leaving, and then that way you can keep that chain of dialogue going into the offseason. It's something that we could hopefully see him back in the Cub uniform next year if they do end up selling. I think we've kind of crossed into the talk they're going to sell moment here for a lot of us, but yeah, there is a chance they don't. There's a distinct chance that maybe they don't. find the deal that they need, or the Cubs keep winning here and find themselves back in it. But that is probably the latter, probably not expected. One of those things that you shouldn't, as a fan, sit there and think that they're going to come back from this 8.5 game deficit here to win the division. What are your thoughts on that, if any, Joey, on the Cody Bellinger comment?
Yeah, I mean, sticks out like a sore thumb, right? When he says, I don't know what I can say, what I can't say, or, however he worded that. Sticks out kind of like a sore thumb to me, because that pretty much tells me, well, he kind of knows, exactly like you were saying, they're working, arm in arm or hand in hand. And, you just want to keep the guy happy. Maximizing the value, the trade return and all that makes total sense. That's what you want, obviously, but you're going to want to keep him happy and send him somewhere where he wants to go if you're going to trade him. Don't send him somewhere where he's going to be pissed off about being there, or maybe not feel comfortable, because you want him to leave, like you said, with a good feeling. So then that way he wants to come back and he knows you took care of him. Kind of like, with Kimbrel, because I think was it his daughter with the heart issues? And
yeah, she had something going on, and she was at Warrior Children's, I believe. That was the long and short of that deal. I don't want to say that was wrong, but I feel like I remember reading that somewhere, that Jed and those guys, they made sure he stayed within Chicago. But yeah, no, it's those little details that go a long way. They really do. Gonna move on here. Scott jumping in, doing some homework for us, even though we should have done it.
Right.
Wes Maskey last pitched 5 days ago. So wouldn't surprise me if that's a name that's brought up. If they are going to go with the bullpen, kind of can see how that would work and how it would be brought up. Other than that, Joey, any final thoughts on today's episode before we get out of here? I know we went a little longer today with a little wind, but there's a lot to talk about in Cub land right now.
Yeah, we got a lot of wind in us, right? We had some long pipes today, but it's a lot, like you said, lots to talk about. Not too much on the game today, because it's like whatever. I will say, like, Morel, stop thinking so much out there. Like,
yeah, right.
To me, it seems like he thinks too much. When he has too much time, he has a tendency to think too much. That's the only thing I can come up with. Third base, second base. Guy's got the talent. He can play any position. Like, he can do it. So, like, that little miscue there. But, nah, man, it's always great to get on the mic. I'm really getting sick of are they going to buy? Are they going to sell? Are they going to buy? Are they going to sell? Are they going to buy? Are they going to sell? Are you going to sell? Are you going to buy? Like, it's every day. Like, you go through Twitter, wherever you're looking. You look at Cubs articles. You're gonna buy. You're gonna sell. What are they gonna do? I'm so sick of it to this point where it's like I've kind of tuned out. I know we get into the conversations because we have a lot to talk about and our own thoughts, but it just gets exhausting, man. Like, just fast forward me to what the fuck happens. Kind of to that point. And I mean, it sucks because you might be watching the last days of Marcus Stroman in a Cubs uniform. Might have been the last time he pitched at Wrigley, right? The last outing. Cody Bellinger, we could be seeing his final days here in a Cubs uniform. We don't know. We truly don't know. But I'm excited to see what happens regardless, because look, if it doesn't play out the way that any of us want to, we want them to buy. We want them to win. Always win. Buying's fun. Like, it's not my money. Spend it, baby. Like, let's go. Let's fucking win games. But I will feel good probably about the returns too. I think Jed generally does pretty well on the trade market. I think he generally does well. And I think the last point I want to make is, like, we just need to really be patient with a lot of these prospects, because how many times have we seen it where a guy leaves and goes somewhere else and he does really well and everybody's like, oh my, how could you get rid of that guy? How could you let him go? 4 weeks ago when he was on the Cubs, you were like, get this guy off the fucking team, get him out of the lineup. Like, that's how bipolar Cubs fans can be. So I'm trying to eliminate the bipolarness, even though, like, it'll come out just so much. Like I'm I'm stepping aside from the bipolarness juice. I'm here. Just fast forward me to when the going gets tough, or when the tears start getting shed, or whatever's going to happen.
Well, you got a little bit over a week. The MLB trade deadline, August 1st. Cubs got a couple games to play prior to that. We're going to keep hoping that they win them before then. Again, we were recapping a 4-3 win. Cubs win. Justin Steele with a great start. Home runs from Mastrobouni and Bellinger. And Mr. Adbert Alzolay comes in and shuts it down. Cubs on Tap is powered by OnTap Sportsnet. Make sure you're heading to www.ontapsportsnet.com for all your sports and literature needs. We have it all Chicago sports covered there. And make sure that you are heading over into our shop, picking up yourself an OnTap t-shirt, and going over to our partners at Homage for their awesome merch as well. They have a great set. I was wearing it last night. It's the Cubs MLB Jam t-shirt. It's a pretty sweet Sandberg and Dawson setup with the typical NBA Jam logo in front of it. Pretty sweet. Gets a lot of comments. So I went out to dinner the other day, Joey, had it on, and I had 3 people who came up and asked where that shirt was, and it's over at Homage. Those are our great friends over there. Again, www.ontapsportsnet for all your sports literature needs. There will be no show tomorrow, but maybe we will have a Sunday Fun Day show to round out this 4-game set with the St. Louis Cardinals. And finally, my favorite time of the show is the comment of the show. And the comment of the show for today, Cards got hosed. Long live baseball. Great job. We are going to point and laugh at you. Definitely not with you. Cardinals suck. And Joey, let's get out of here the only way that we know how.
Yeah. Go fuck yourself, Alec Burleson, Nate Burleson's cousin.
And let's go Cubbies.